So really, that Giro, you were as chill as you always seem to be?
Oh yeah, I mean, there was no reason to get crazy. I mean, that was the last thing you needed to do.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Puro, editor of the magazine and host of the pod. You've just heard a snippet from my conversation with Ryder Hesjedal, the ever laid-back winner of the 2012 Giro d'Italia and first Canadian to wear the race's pink leader's jersey. If you're listening to this episode on the day it comes out, May 21st, it's 8 years to the day that the rider from Victoria was on the final rest day of the Giro. The previous day, he lost the race lead on a stage that was wet and tough. He had had mechanical issues too. Hesjedal was still in a good position overall, but could he really win the Italian Grand Tour against the explosive Joaquim Rodriguez? Listen to my interview with Hesjedal as he discusses the race in detail, the composition of his Garmin Barracuda team, and the complexity of the penultimate stage in which a new rival appeared, and all the others seemed to leave the outcome of the race solely in the hands of the Canadian. Ryder Hesjedal, before the start of the 2012 season, the team decided that the Giro d'Italia would be your target. Why were you the rider for the job at that point in your career?
Well, good question. Definitely the trend had been the Tour de France. Obviously, 2010 was a big sort of breakthrough for me, riding in the GC capacity like that in a Grand Tour to be in top 10, battling there right through, especially getting better at the end of the race. In my mind, it was okay. Let's go again. Go to the Tour. And when they sat down into the team and said, no, we want you to really focus on the Giro. I think it's good for you. And that was it. Took a little bit of thought on it. And I said, okay, I'm going to grab this with two hands. If I'm the leader right now, that gives me security to go and perform and train towards it. And that was it. So it was quite I had mixed feelings at the very beginning. When you sit down and say, well, the Tour de France isn't your objective. There's a race before that. And that's what we want you to focus on first and foremost. So yeah, that was it. I said, okay, let's go. I think it worked out pretty good.
Definitely, I think it worked out pretty good. After the 2012 Giro started in Denmark, it then moved to Italy for stage 4. That stage was a team time trial. How much preparation went into the team trial in Verona?
Oh, a lot. I mean, I think definitely at that time, we had already won the team time trial in the Giro in 2008. We almost won almost won it in the Tour in 2009. We were second. 2011, we won in the Tour. So, I mean, we were just really focused on that event, and we did put in a lot of time. The directors and the staff behind the scenes, really put a lot of thought and just effort into it, probably more maybe than teams had ever thought to do at a certain point. I think, and I know, we started to see those benefits and fruits of that. So we knew we could go to the Giro, and the team was definitely built big engine heavy for that event. That really worked in our favor. Obviously, a lot of people credit the team time trial more than maybe it should be. We only put 5 seconds into Rodriguez or into Katusha. It wasn't like I got a minute and a half or 2 minutes from him on that stage, but just to arrive in Italy, win the stage, put Ramunas in pink, that just enabled the team to relax, to already be successful, and just put us in the driver's seat.
That team time trial put, as you mentioned, Ramunas Navardauskas in pink, in the leader's jersey, and you moved into third in the general classification. Was Navardauskas then to be a foil or a decoy for your GC plans?
No, Ramunas was just an incredible engine and an amazing guy. So, he had sacrificed himself to perfection in the race, and he was actually coming off in about the last kilometer. He wasn't even thinking about going into the pink jersey. That's what kind of rider he is. And we had to actually say, come on, man, no, just stay on. You're going to be in pink. You know what I mean? Because he was obviously the best place in the time trial. We had to force him to not sit up and get the pink jersey. So, that was fun. I knew I was close still, and that hopefully my time would come to also wear the jersey. But just to have it in our camp was huge.
At the end of stage 7 in Roca de Cambio, you came in 5th, just behind Frank Schleck and Joaquim Rodriguez. That put you in the pink jersey. Then you became the first Canadian ever to lead the Giro. What was it like then to put on the pink jersey?
Wow, you'll never forget that. I want to say maybe it was the next day after Ramunas was in pink. There was a breakaway and Ramunas had come off. He wasn't in the front. So it was my turn to go into pink. Just, things got just not quite timed right. And I believe it was Adriano Malori took the jersey. And I remember being quite frustrated because it was just right there. And you don't know, if you'll be that close again to really just take it in those type of stages. That really kind of motivated me. And I was upset that, I wasn't pulling it on that day. But to pull it on, to do the ride that we did, we took control of the last climb. Christian set me up perfectly. I was able to be with anyone in the race on that stage, which was also pretty hard in the kind of selective final already. And to be right in the mix, ride good, pull that jersey on, still at the end of the first week after what we'd already got through. It was incredible.
The finish in Milan was still a long way away. Was holding the jersey all the way to the end a goal that you guys considered?
No, definitely not. I think if you look at the team, it was a team that was built that could do the job, but not necessarily one that you would say, okay, this is a team that's going to have the jersey by the middle of the race and we're going to defend it and win the race. That wasn't the look of the team. We had guys really suited for certain aspects of the race, and that's what we had to work with. It became quite important to manage what we had there well, and as it went back and forth, I was never really concerned. After I'd been in the jersey for a few days, felt that, understood it, been a part of the race like that, I wasn't really concerned when I would lose the jersey by a few seconds. It was actually positives to not being in the jersey day in and day out.
On stage 8 on the Colle Molella, with 7 kilometers left, you looked like you were suffering. Was that a bad day?
When Pozzovivo won up to the lake there the next day?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that was a tough day. So right out of the gate, you're defending the jersey. I mean, that's hard. We'd put in that effort of a week already, and that was a tough climb. I don't know if I was having a bad day, but, I had to do what I could to manage that climb and stay there. I wasn't attacking or following Pozzovivo, but no one was. No, that wasn't not a bad day. Just racing the Giro's tough.
On that day, Joaquim Rodriguez moved into second on the GC, 9 seconds behind you. Did you know then that he'd be your main rival for the overall, or were you still looking out for riders like previous winners Michele Scarpone and Damiano Cunego?
Oh, you're still, paying attention to everyone that's up there. That's just the way it is. I don't think at that point I was understanding what the race was going to be, in respect to me and him battling it out like we did. I don't think you could foresee that quite yet.
How would you compare your racing style with that of Rodriguez?
Quite different. Probably as opposite as you can be in respects to your body type and where your strengths are. I think that's the beauty of cycling. It seems to be always a little bit of an equalizer. You're better at certain parts. You have to give up on other parts. So I think that's why you can see 6-foot guys riding with 5-foot guys and guys that are not half the weight, but getting pretty close. So it's quite remarkable. My strengths came just in my durability and diesel attributes that I could just keep grinding, and that's obviously ideal in a 3-week race. I never won a explosive type 1 week stage race, where there was maybe one decisive or two decisive mountain days and a time trial, and that's more or less it. Like, I need more days in the legs, I need longer time in the saddle, and that's just where I was able to excel.
In Assisi, that's stage 10, Rodriguez took the win and the pink jersey. How did you feel then at the end of that stage?
I felt great. I mean, that was a real tough stage. The team was excellent, put me into perfect position. There was a hard climb before that to get into the final. I mean, basically the stage is over as you're going up into the final plaza there. But I remember he's won the stage, but I gave the jersey up because of time bonuses. I was on the same time. I didn't worry about it. I'd been in the jersey for whatever it was, 3 days. I'd been right there, pedal for pedal with anybody again on a tough day. So it's just, you're thinking about the next day, being positive. You're never dwelling on anything for too long.
On stage 14, a wet stage with lots of climbing, you had a good attack at about 3 kilometers to go. It would put you back in the pink jersey. But what did that move tell you about your competition?
Well, I knew I was good. I felt good, and guys in the GC, were kind of looking at each other. Rodriguez was happy to kind of just follow. I mean, that's what you're defending, right? If you're not, you either need to be defense or offense. At that moment, I'm racing on instinct. There's guys moving up the road. I feel good. I have nothing to lose. I mean, in the sense that I'm not the leader. I want to, be taking every opportunity I can at that point, and I just went for it, and I was able to take some time. I don't know exactly what was happening in the other guys' minds. If they could have followed me, they should have. If they couldn't, that's the way it is. If they decided let Ryder go, not worried about him, that's their problem. I don't know.
You lost the jersey again the next day. How did that change compare with losing it on stage 10?
I mean, that was a really tough day. That was wet and cold. It was basically doing a Lombardia one-day classic. The final climb was definitely more suited to Rodriguez and the smaller explosive guys. So, I needed to manage myself well. Didn't lose a heap of time. It also been a complicated day. I was having some bike problems with my main bike. We're defending again on a super hard stage that, we didn't have 5 or 6 climbers. We had 2 climbers, and the rest were diesels and strong guys that could help me in different parts of the race. But when the race really tilted upwards, there's only so many guys that can ride a monument style hilly classic. So it was just a tough day. That was my bad day in the race, and I didn't lose that much. So I was actually happy to not be in the jersey, to get off the mountain and get into focusing on the next days, because I didn't have the jersey, I was still in the race as much as having the jersey in my mind. Was
there like a dark day in terms of like your mindset anywhere in that race?
No, not that I can remember. I was never out of the race. There was never a moment where it's like, this is getting less likely. There was never, a real crisis where, my legs just weren't working anymore. Obviously, when I won the race, there was never those moments in that race. And there's been lots of races and lots of moments like that, to say the least, in pro biking. That was a perfect 3 weeks.
So really, that Giro, you were as chill as you always seem to be?
Oh, yeah. There was no reason to get crazy. That was the last thing you needed to do. And the people around me were helping me be that way. But, I remember Alan Piper. He was probably the most nervous guy out of everyone. And I remember seeing him looking across at me one day, one evening at dinner, and we still had a few days to go, but we'd been through a lot of hard stuff. I remember he was looking at me, and I just kind of caught his eye and looked over at him and just kind of gave him like I think we're going to do this. Like, it's going to be okay kind of look. And
that's interesting. Alan Piper was the sports director that year at that Giro, and it seems like he was doing the worrying for you, maybe.
Of course. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's a legend in the sport as a rider and as a director. And to see me pull that off and be there and just watch it as a fan of biking, I mean, you can't really get any better.
Tell me about stage 19. You finished second behind Roman Kreuziger. What was the significance of that result?
That day, I would say, as good as it was, I mean, I'd done everything I needed to do. I mean, they needed to attack me and to put pressure on me. And I'm not in the pink jersey, but I'm having to ride like I am. I could have easily sort of just really defended my position and followed and been happy to do that. I mean, I felt good. I followed every attack. I was able to benefit on that and push and be in front of everybody again on GC. So, I mean, you have to do that at some point in the race. So that was important that I did that there. In hindsight, basically every little thing I did was important, because you could say, oh, why would you attack that day and only gain 14 seconds or 17 seconds? You know, what's the big deal? In the end of the race, they were all big deals, because that's the margin. I only won by 16 seconds. I mean, it's pretty insane. So, you know, but when I look back on that day, it would have been nice to outright win that stage. But anyways, you can't get too greedy.
I guess you can't. But no, you make a good point. You went from 30 seconds behind Rodriguez to 17. So, yeah, those moves did end up being critical. Most Canadian pro cyclists don't make it into popular culture back here in Canada. But you were getting coverage on the main news channels, not just Cycling Press. Did you know that Canadians back at home were starting to talk about you? And if you did know, how did that feel?
I think the momentum I had created with the Tour de France in 2010, definitely, you know, I could notice that. And for me to ride into the top 10 and be on that top 10 leaderboard day in and day out in the biggest race in the world, I think that really is what I, you know, remember noticing, like, yeah, everyone's watching, that I was performing, you know, for a lot of people. And I really, you know, that was special to me. So when I was in that Giro and back and forth, and I mean, I knew people were rooting for me. I knew that people were watching and following the story. So, yeah, I just wanted to do it for everyone, you know, myself, my family, my friends, and fans, and everyone that supported over the years, and that I was doing something historical.
Race leaders usually have more work off the bike with press duties and stuff like that. Was the attention you were getting ever a distraction?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's just all part of it. I mean, only the leader of the race for 4 days, but 3 of them were pretty much the most important. After the first week, after the second week, and after the third week. So I didn't mind doing all that stuff after the last stage in Milan, that's for sure.
In that final week of the Giro, Thomas de Gendt, then of Vacansoleil, moved into the top 15. At the start of stage 20, he was 8th in the general classification. Was he on your radar at the start of stage 20?
No, not at all. I mean, he had been doing a good ride, but was never in the picture for that until, you know, that stage, and there was a lot of things going on, so that became one thing that needed to be managed. Time's time, so when there's only a time trial left in the race, and then all of a sudden you do have a guy that's whatever he was 6-7 minutes back, but he's somehow potentially going to get those 6-7 minutes or whatever it was, 5 minutes, then that becomes a problem. So obviously that was something that was happening in the race, where he was, you know, allowed to go up the road because of the circumstances. And really my effort was a combination really of that on the Stelvio. I mean, I needed to not lose time to anybody, but I also needed to start bringing some time back to this guy. I couldn't sit around and be content with not losing time to the other GC guys, but also not pushing the race and having him, you know, get too much time. So that was one of many things to manage over a 3-week race. Lots of drama. There was always something going on.
Well, it's true, especially on that stage 20, because de Gendt took off up the Stelvio with about 12 kilometers left, and you and the other GC favorites started to make a move right then. Did you know immediately the danger he was presenting? Like, were you getting orders from the team car, or were you riding by feel at that point?
That stage was super complicated. It was super hard. Right off the start, there was a climb. Katusha and Lampre and Liquigas were all sending good guys up the road to, they were needing to do something, obviously running out of time to put me under pressure. So as the race was moving like that, I wanted to have the same card to play. It's risky when you only have so many guys. Stage was kind of straightforward in the sense of, it's up and down and climbs. But I sent Christian up in the break. I wanted him to be in front of the race. If you have a problem, normally having that card is good. So I made that call, but I only have two guys, is Christian and Peter, that can climb and be on that type of stage. So
yeah, that's Christian Van de Velde and Peter Stettner, correct?
Yeah, exactly. By the time we were getting to the Motorola, Christian's up the road. Pete's good, but he's not great. And Rodriguez starts to attack me already on the slopes of the Motorola. I'm able to respond. I'm able to answer everything. The race isn't exploded, but it's hard, and we've got over the top. And then there's a pause, because now what? I have no teammates. I'm by myself, so how can I control the race or do anything like that? And that's when guys started to attack. And they were able to take 5-6 minutes instantly, because we were just coasting down the downhill. We got into the valley, and everyone's looking at each other. That's biking. It was as if I was the leader of the race, but I'm not the leader, and I have no teammates. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't just start riding tempo in the valley before the Stelvio. So we had to really make that call, and it happened real quick, but it still takes time to get organized. Christian needed to wait, and we needed to wait for Peter to come from behind to connect. So in the course of that, getting organized again, that's where all that time happened. So that was pretty interesting. And I think one thing that came from that, which was pretty neat, was that I believe Thomas, that's where he would always go for training for his stuff. So I can't remember the number that he'd ridden that climb, but he knows it like the back of his hand. So there couldn't be a better situation to manage that sort of, not a gift, but the circumstance of the race. All of a sudden, he has a 5 or 6 minute lead or whatever it was getting onto the slope of the Stelvio. And it just happened that he'd done a Giro also where he wasn't that far behind in the big picture. He was still there hovering around. So yeah, that was just a pretty neat dynamic. And in the end, he stood on the podium in Milan. Guys lost the podium that day doing those tactics, putting the race on me, waiting. We managed the best we could, got the team back together. Peter did everything to get us as fast as we could to the bottom of the Stelvio. Christian did amazing for about the first half of it. And then it was just up to me to go as hard and as fast as I could to neutralize the other guys, manage that threat.
It really was up to you to manage, because it was you and a bunch of GC favorites like Scarponi and, of course, Rodriguez. There was also Ivan Basso, Domenico Pozzovivo, even Rigoberto Urán was there. Mm-hmm. But still it seemed always to come back to you on the front. Mm-hmm. And you were able to shell a bunch of riders except for Scarponi and Rodriguez. And they'll give you some trouble in the final kilometers. But did any of that, I suspect you're going to say no, but did any of that faze you?
No, I mean, if I had totally succeeded in overcoming all the challenges and all the difficulties, and as the third week went on, if people were thinking every day, okay, here's the day Ryder's going to crack and get dropped, I mean, you bet wrong. That for me was very motivating and empowering, and to be in that position, to be where I sort of dreamed about being, that's a special thing in sport. When Rodriguez jumps away for 12 seconds or whatever it was in the last 200 meters after a 7-hour day, it's nothing to me. So, I won that day.
The popular wisdom at the time, and well, it turned out to be true, but people kept saying you're the better time trialist compared with Rodriguez, who still had the lead. Did that fill you with confidence going into the time trial in Milan? And even if it did, how did you avoid taking that for granted, because you still had to perform on the day?
Oh, I didn't at all. I knew exactly that game that guys were trying to play with me. That tone was trying to be set a little bit before. Say, wow, you can afford to give a couple minutes you're going to take a couple minutes on these guys in that final time trial. You know what I mean? And I never thought like that. I never didn't take the opportunity to take seconds when I could. I had to make sure I stayed close, and I knew that. So even 31 seconds, like, oh, it's a cakewalk, it's no problem. It's not. I mean, in the end, it was, they had shortened it. It was supposed to be like 32 kilometers. In the end, once it was all built up in Milan, it was like 28.5. So it's 4 less K. That's worse for me. You know what I mean? Like, there was always these little things. It depends on the type of TT. It depends on equipment and bikes and form. 30K or more time trial on day 21 of a Grand Tour is completely different than any other time you see someone do a TT in a week race or just an individual time trial. I had to be perfect, really, and I was, and I had to take risks. I had to do everything right. There was no margin for anything. I mean, even a flat tire and a bike change might have lost the race easily. Skip chain, anything. There was no, riding cautious. You got this, no problem. Just don't crash. It's like, no, I still need to go right to the very end. So
on that final day, how many risks did you take in that time trial of about 28.5 kilometers?
It's all a risk. You're going flat out through the streets of Milan. I mean, it doesn't show it too good on TV when you see, but there's paving stones like the size of pizza boxes. Those are the cobbles or whatever you want to call it through those sections, and tram lines and just all sorts of stuff, like change of road surface and direction, intercity type of time trial like that. Well, I know I skipped my pedal on one corner. I mean, I could easily just crash you, like high side you to like a body slam. Like, you're pretty much done if that happens. Pushing it as hard as you can, getting as close to the barriers, in and out of the apexes of the corner, all that stuff. I mean, that's what you have to do on top of having the legs perfect, enough power in the tank still, the mental focus and doing that, the confidence in your equipment. I knew I had the fastest stuff, certainly in my skin suit, all those little things. That's what it took to win at the end.
When you finished your ride, Rodriguez was still on the course. When did you know, or when were you sure that you had won the Giro? Not
until he finished, really. It was kind of a blur. Basically, people had just explained to me, okay, it's over. There's no way. You got it. And then we just started to do the walk out of the finish line there. But in about the last kilometer on the radio, the director's saying, you got it. No more risks. There's only one more turn. It's kind of a out and back for the last little K or whatever. So like 2 more turns. You got it. There's no reason to push anymore. But that was kind of the only time I really let off about the last kilometer and knew I just had to get across the line.
What souvenirs do you have from that time?
Oh, lots. I have the bike that I rode, the jerseys, helmets, shoes. I mean, that's all bike stuff, but those are kind of the main souvenirs. I mean, my race book, your stage cards for the memories down the road. The Senzafina trophy, that's a pretty good keepsake from there.
Has the significance of that win changed over the years?
Well, I think so. I think I appreciate it. 4 years not racing now. Within a couple years, pretty quick removed, you understand just how crazy it was and difficult and exactly just what it was that was happening. So yeah, for me, for my career, to have won the Giro d'Italia, I mean, to still say it, I mean, yeah, it actually gets sweeter every day if you see how hard the sport is, and a lot of guys try and it just doesn't happen. So I appreciate it, and I think for me it becomes more significant as time goes on, for sure.
Well, Ryder, I appreciate you taking us through this memory lane of the 2012 Giro. Thank you, Ryder.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And that's the episode. It's put together by me, Matthew Piaro. It's produced by Adam Killick. He composed the music too. Thanks to Ontario Creates for its support. And thank you for listening. Please rate and review the show. Ride safely, and I'll talk to you later.